Now we're good. Welcome everyone to the Women's Kiteboarding Collective. These are our collective chats that we're doing newly this year, a new format since during the pandemic for a couple of years, we couldn't get together in person in a formal way. So we're doing it in a more informal way virtually. This is the collective chat for the first Wednesday of every month, where we connect with you, ladies, wherever you are in the world, and Kite experts are guest speakers to inspire us. So this is what we're doing this year, and we hope soon we can get back to some more in-person events together. You've already renamed yourself on the map or on the participant list, so we know where you're dialing in from today, so we appreciate you wherever you are in the world. Today, we're very excited to have our guest speaker for May, who is Sue Kay from Cape Town, South Africa. Now, Sue fell in love with kiting about 20 years ago. She doesn't really look old enough to have fallen in love with it 20 years ago. But nevertheless, that's the deal. And she is a kite pro, an instructor, and more newly in her career, she is a kiteboarding product designer for Airush Kiteboarding. She knows kiteboarding gear really well. She's done everything from testing it to repairing it, manufacturing it, and graphic engineering design. And she started off in service and sales. So she knows the whole enchilada about gear, which is very interesting to me because I'm trying to get more technical about gear. So I'll probably have a few questions for you. She's been involved in some local and international competitions as an athlete, but also as an organizer, a social media correspondent, and even a judge in these competitions. So again, very well-rounded. She is especially passionate about sharing her knowledge of kiting and encouraging and helping all women kiters to improve and have fun. And today's topic is May the Force be with you, like in Star Wars, with a little twist. Sue's topic is May the 4th be with you, because today is the 4th of May. And she wants to give you the force of learning to be a more confident kiter, no matter what your level. And she's going to talk about 3 steps in doing just that. So without further ado, I'm going to ask you to help me welcome Sue Kay. Welcome, Sue. Yay!
Unmute this. I have just unmuted. Does everyone hear me?
Yes. And
Perfect.
For those of you in the audience, if you'd like, you can change your speaker view for the video to be on the speaker. All right. Welcome.
So thank you very much for having me. It's great that the Women's Kiteboarding Collective's invited me. I've been to a couple of these monthly meetups, and it is just so nice to be able to share knowledge and actually talk to people from around the world. It's the ladies from around the world, and it's nice to see a bunch of names that I know in the guest list tonight. So yeah, thank you ladies for joining us. And so yeah, when Holly and Laurel approached me and asked me to join me for this talk, they gave me a couple of dates, and the 4th of May was one of them. And immediately I went, of course, that is the day that I would definitely want to do the chat, because it reminded me, one, that it's Star Wars Day, and that comes from the Jedi saying, "May the Force be with you." But maybe it's less known that the "May the Fourth be with you" actually was initially popularized in Great Britain when Margaret Thatcher was elected Prime Minister in the late 70s, and that was on the 4th of May, and she was the first female Prime Minister. And all politics aside and all of that, the one thing that Margaret did have for her was she was a very confident leader, and she made solid decisions. They may not have been the right decisions, but she made them confidently, and that's something I feel strongly about, is being confident in your kiting will always help you become a better kiter. Now, there's 3 steps that I've found, or 3 things that I've found through my career that have helped me become a more confident kiter. And I'll start, I'll say, let's jump right in. and I'm going to start talking about kiting, that jumping right in might not be the thing that you want to do. I know that being confident, you've always seen that friend who's given something a go, and first time they get it right. They get it 100% right. They just seem to have the talent and the knack for it. And then they keep going. The next thing they try, they get that right. And the next thing they try, and they get that right. And then one day they injure themselves and they lose all their confidence, and then suddenly everything becomes a little harder. And we call it beginner's luck, possibly. The other one is ignorance is bliss. But mostly what it is if you don't have any inhibitions and you've got that confidence, you tend to get things right. And now, how do we make sure that we get things right without being ignorant and without misplaced confidence? And so my first step there would be to assess, do a risk assessment, for example. So we've got 3 steps. I'll summarize at the end, but the first one is your risk assessment. So normally when I do lessons and things like that, this is the first one. And I'm sure if you've done your lessons, or if you're an instructor like some of the ladies on this call are, it's one of the things you cover with your students. But the one thing is, if you can assess a situation and a location, then and you know what can go wrong and what's right, and all of those things, then you feel more confident about going out, be it the depth of the water or the wind direction, or that there are no sharks out if you're scared of sharks. All of those things can help build your confidence. So I don't know about you guys. I mean, I'm fortunate. I've got a variety of locations to choose from. Some other people are less fortunate, that they've only got one location to choose from, but that location might be perfect, might have the most wide open space and smooth wind and everything going for it. That's perfect. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't assess the location every time you go to the beach. And not just the location, there's a couple of other things to assess. And so where do we start with the assessment? Well, first thing I'd say is, where's the wind coming from? Is it, where's it going to? Is it smooth? Is it going to change? That's just common sense. It's a wind sport we're doing. So if you know that your location has got lovely smooth wind, there's no chance of an updraft or anything like that, you're going to feel a lot more confident about putting a bigger kite up, and that might enable you to have more hang time, which will then enable you to do that board off trick that you want to learn. So now you've assessed the location. So it might not just be your beginner assessment of, is this a safe beach to go to? It might be the assessment of, can I actually put a bigger kite up, which will help me to learn this new trick? Or alternatively, you can go, well, actually, the wind's really gusty today. It might not be the right day to be trying the new freestyle trick that I've wanted to learn, or that kite loop, because it might be variable. But again, you've assessed the location and you've assessed the wind conditions, and that will give you a little bit more confidence in what you can try in that location on the day and in those conditions. So first thing to do is to assess your kite spot or your kite spots. It might also be that I'm going to pull up and share my screen here for you. Let me find this share screen. Do that there. So if you have a look at the screen of mine here, this is, we've got Google Maps. Can you ladies see it? Can you give me a thumbs up? Perfect, a heads up. So this is, if we zoom out, this is one of the spots, Ruakaka's where we used to be based in New Zealand, and our spot there had every wind direction covered within 15 minutes drive. What it also had was an assessment, like it required you to assess the conditions to be able to decide which spot's going to be best for the day. And if we look at this point here, Marsden Point Beach, what we had in summer was a sea breeze that blew from this direction. If you can see from the ocean beach there through here. And there's actually a bit of a mountain range here, and there's a gap. So what would happen is the wind would blow through there, and we'd have 5 to 10 knots more wind over here than what we had 5 kilometers down the beach over here at Ruakaka Beach, which means that this is one of the best places in the world for your summer holidays. You can come and sunbathe on the beach here and there's no wind with the family, or you can head up here and have a lovely sea breeze session at Marsden Point Beach. It's cross shore from the right, so it's perfect for perfectly smooth conditions for riding. So there's another reason to assess your location. So you might be searching for slightly stronger wind, or you might be searching for slightly lighter wind to be able to try that new trick. So why not have a look around at all the different spots and yeah, assess the conditions and see if it's going to be suited for learning that new trick you want to do. Now, the reason that will give you confidence is because it's the right conditions for that trick, and you'll be able to consistently try it more often if you travel for it. And then the other reason it will give you a bit more confidence is if the conditions aren't ideal. So if it's gusty and you've assessed it and you know that the wind's variable or changeable, it means that I didn't get it right now, I nearly got it, but then I didn't get it. You're not going to beat yourself up as much because you know that there's a reason for it. It's every time you try it, it's slightly different. So it shouldn't knock your confidence as much as if the conditions were perfect. Okay, the next thing, again, to do with your risk assessment or your assessment of your location is give yourself space. Now, I find here in Cape Town, it is one of the big air spots, and it's well known for it, but that means that there are dozens and dozens of young kiters and not so young kiters going out there and boosting huge, and they tend to travel a long distance and they land. And in Cape Town, in summer, there are hundreds of kiters out. I know we've seen pictures of Tarifa, but Cape Town with lots of kiters out, but in Cape Town it's similar. And when there's people all around you, sometimes you don't feel the confidence to try things because you don't have the space to do it. So maybe if you can, choose a spot where you've got a little bit more space, where maybe you go upwind a bit or you go downwind a bit to find a location where you can find space. Now, it's not necessarily just the other riders around you that could give you like a bit of pressure and knock your confidence. If you can give yourself a space downwind of you, for example, in New Zealand, again, one of our kite spots, which was very well known in the early days of kiting, was Christchurch. And I think Laurel's been there for sure, and a couple more of you. But the Peterlin kites were born south of here, and so was underground kiteboards, which became access kiteboarding, and a couple of those. But I'm going to share my screen again for you, so you can see this location. There we go. So this spot in Christchurch is a very big estuary. It just happens to be next to the sewage works, which seems to be a popular thing for kiteboarding locations. But in summer, there was a sea breeze that would blow from here, which would be perfectly smooth. And then we have in this, there's a road that comes along here, and here's the windsurfers reserve, which by default became the kite surfers reserve. So it's a nice space to rig up and launch and land. Unfortunately, when the wind's blowing from the right here, and you come in a little bit too close here, there's also a car park. And if you don't choose to do your trick early or far away from it, you might end up with your kite in the car park. And also, I found myself in this corner more than once when the wind dropped off a little bit. And then immediately you start panicking because you're close to all of these obstacles. You're close to this road, the water's getting shallow, there's a car park. And it just takes one time for you to land your kite accidentally in the car park for you to blow your confidence. So rather than do that, give yourself space, head upwind when you're trying something new, and then when the wind dies off, or I mean, when you get your tricks right, you could possibly do it closer to an obstacle, but I still don't recommend that because your equipment might fail. And you might end up on the road as well. So give yourself space. And then the more space you have, the more time you have to correct what you get wrong, and the more confident you are because you're not panicking about quickly landing that trick or quickly relaunching the kite after you crashed it. So there we go. So then the third thing in the assessment, so you've got yourself the conditions, you've got yourself space around you, and then the third thing is don't panic. So most important thing is think about the worst things that can go wrong in your location and plan for it. And that way, if anything does go wrong in that spot that you're kiting in, be it that a line breaks and you have to swim in, you at least know that the current is going to be taking you in a certain direction. And if it does, if you're in a tidal location, if it does start taking you in that direction, you should swim across the current, or you should just relax and it'll wash you back into shore. So plan for the worst case scenario, be it the wind dying, the wind picking up, be it your kite breaking or someone else's kite breaking and hooking up with your kite. If you've planned for it, then you'll be able to react quicker and you won't be so panicky if things go wrong. It also means that you've got headspace not to worry about the wind changing a little bit. Maybe it's starting to drop off. You can still focus on your trick or whatever you're trying to learn, and know that, okay, if it drops off to this wind streak, then I have to go to shore because you've already planned for it. Or if it picks up, or if I see a black cloud over there, then I better go to shore. But you've already assessed it and made your forward planning for the situation. So yeah, so that's pretty much it. I've shown you a couple of locations there, and it's good to have the self-rescues under your belt and all of those things for those assessments of locations. It'll give you more confidence. Now, the second thing, I mean, it's with the assessments, you should choose the locations and the conditions to suit your needs. But the other thing you can do is you can change your needs or your desires to suit the location. So if you, for example, here in Cape Town, we've got big air conditions and wave conditions, but it's not great for freestyle. And you think about the Brazil lagoons where the wind's smooth and it's perfect for freestyle. And then you think about maybe Santa Barbara in California, there's not much wind there, but there is kiting and foiling is quite good. And then even places like the European lakes where the wind, like there's not much, some spots, there isn't much space on the edges for launching and landing. And then the wind's a bit light on the sides, but strong in the middle. a place like that might not be ideal for kiting. Maybe you should rather do another wind sport like winging or windsurfing. And they're all complementary to some extent. And you can kite in those locations, but you might not become a freestyler in that location. You might become a racer. So that's another reason to do your assessments, not just because of the conditions that you choose to suit your needs, but maybe you change your needs or your desires because you're in a location, living with your family in that spot for a year. Just think of whatever wind sports you do, that's going to be complementary for your learning going forward, because you learn every time you go out in the wind. So, okay, so that's my number one, is assessing the location. The second thing for confidence is understanding your equipment. Now, we need to know how it works, but we also need to know what is best suited to us. So if you want to go out and become a big air rider, you're not going to choose the wave riding kite, or but it's not just about the kite. I mean, a lot of kites these days are marketed as do everything kind of kites. And sure, they can, if, like the kiters who have got the skills to do amazing things. I mean, think about the early days. Lou Wainman was on a 2-line kite with boots on, and he was doing these amazing freestyle tricks that would have won him competitions in 2006, 2007 on equipment that comes from the 2000s. So skills can win out, but they're not great for your confidence. I mean, if you're just learning things, choose the right equipment to learn on, and you'll learn quicker. And the quicker you learn, the more confident you'll be. But then it's not just about the kite. You've got to think about how are you connected to your kite. It's through lines, through a bar, through a depower line, a quick release, the spreader bar, and then the harness, and then it goes down to the board. So all of these things make a difference. And so straight off, you've got to be comfortable. If you're not comfortable in your harness, you're not going to be comfortable to kite for a long period of time. And that means that you're going to reduce the amount of time you have to learn new things. So be comfortable, and that gives you more confidence. So me personally, I ride in a seat harness, but it's not a normal seat harness. It's got less padding, so I still have mobility. I can still do grabs and things like that. The reason I choose a seat harness is because here in Cape Town, it's strong wind conditions. I like to be able to edge hard, and I don't like being pulled from my ribs when I jump. My body shape doesn't work very well with a waist harness. It's not for everybody. Some people find a seat harness runs up their bum, so that it doesn't work for them either. So it's choosing the equipment that gives you confidence. So a seat harness in strong wind conditions gives me a confidence, rather than being pulled by my ribs. When I do a big 15-meter jump, I'm being pulled by my bum, and I can breathe. Now, if I choose to go out in a waist harness in the same conditions, I won't jump more than 8 meters, and I'll only jump twice in a session because it's not comfortable. So choose the equipment that'll make you confident. Go out and see what you can try. And yeah, it might be a seat harness. You might not be the coolest looking lady at the beach, but it's finding the gear that'll give you confidence in the way you ride. You don't have to look at yourself, except if you've got a husband who's a photographer who keeps an eye on you. I'm not that lucky. Anyway, so next thing is your harness goes through a spreader bar. Choose a spreader bar that's suited to the riding style you plan to do. If you're going to be wave riding, you might want a wave riding specialist spreader bar. If you're going to be doing big hair, you want something probably more solid. More importantly, make sure that you've got the correct chicken loop attaching to that spreader bar, because you want to make sure that the two are compatible. When you pull the quick release, is that chicken loop going to release? Is it going to safely drop to that single line flag out of your kite? Because just one incident of it slightly getting stuck, you're not going to have confidence again. The other thing is, if it's not compatible, for example, if you put a chicken loop on a rope slider without a ring, or even some rings can cause those chicken loops to age and degrade quicker than what they should. And just one failure of that, are you going to trust it in the future? So it's worth it just to know your gear, know what's compatible with what, and make sure you confident with using it. And then the next one, which is actually a very big one, is how much throw does your bar have? So when you let go of the bar, can you reach it again? So if the wind's picked up dramatically and you've had to let go of your bar and you can't reach it, and now you're being dragged along because the kite hasn't hit the water yet and you don't feel in control, bring that throw down to a position where you can grab it again. And the reason I say that's very important is because letting go of your bar when things are going wrong, when you're learning a trick, isn't just better for you, it's better for the kite, because that kite, you let go of the bar, the kite's going to depower, so that if the kite hits the water, it's going to hit with less dramatically, so less chance your kite's going to break. The other thing is, if you're happy to let go and you've practiced it, it means that you're less likely to hang on to that bar and power the kite up when you should actually be depowering it. So less chance of you getting dragged 20 meters. And if you haven't given yourself space, is that 20 meters going to drag you into a shallow spot on the beach, or is it going to drag you towards that rock bank, or something that again, the pulling on that bar might not be the right thing to do. Actually, definitely won't be the right thing to do. Let go. So other thing that happens is you let go of one hand and you're going to loop your kite, and you might get chucked at distance into someone else's lines. There is, however, one situation where you might want to hold on to it, and that's if you're in really big waves and having your kite go into the water. Now, this is for the ladies who are way more experienced. If having the kite crashing into the water, you're not going to be able to relaunch, it's going to get tumbled in a wave, you're going to end up in the lines. You might want to loop that kite to make sure it doesn't hit the water. But you should practice that. Practice, practice, practice. So it's let go, or again, you've assessed your location, you've assessed some scenarios. The worst case scenario in that situation would be that your kite ends up in the water and you're in massive waves, and this is your lifeline. In that situation, you might want to loop the kite and get it out of the danger zone into the sky and use a kite to body drag you back to the beach. But you would have assessed the location, made sure you've got enough space, and make sure you've got the skills to do that. So first off, most important one is to practice whatever scenario it is. Letting go is the best, generally the best case for most levels of kiters. And if you're at the point where you do need to loop the kite, practicing those loops will give you confidence that to go out in those exceedingly extreme conditions. So there might be a couple of ladies that would like to do that, but again, build your confidence, practice the safety, and that might be a safety mechanism for you in that situation. So know your equipment, know how everything's going to react, and if you let go of the bar, what's the kite going to do? If you pull your quick release, what's the kite going to do? Your quick release is something that would have been covered in all of your lessons, but if you've got new kites, pull the quick release, practice it. I know I practice pulling my quick release quite regularly. I'm out testing kites on my own sometimes, self-launching, self-landing. Sometimes in Cape Town, for example, the wind picks up slowly through the day. I might start testing a 17 meter and ending testing an 8 meter. And if I'm on the 10 meter at the point where it's going from 10 meter to 8 meter conditions, and I'm on my own at the beach, I might ride in with my one hand close to the quick release. And as soon as my kite's over the beach, I'll pull the quick release so that it flags out and lands on the beach. So if you look at my hand like that, it'll land, the wind's coming from this side, I've been kiting along, and then that is the top point of the kite. That's where my safety line's attached. I pull my quick release and it actually flags out and lands like that. I've been leading edge into the wind. I've practiced this the last 15 years regularly. And so I know and I trust that my kite is going to do that, and it is going to land on its leading edge. And it's something that you can practice in lighter wind conditions or in safe locations. Make sure you've got space. But it helps you to know that you can do that. It gives you confidence to be out riding when there's no one else riding, which means you've got more space and you can practice more often than having to wait for 2 or 3 buddies to come out and ride with you. So having other kiters around is safer, especially if you're trying new stuff, because you never know when you're going to trip up and injure yourself. But if it means another couple of sessions a week and doing only small, not too extreme moves and learning new stuff, practice those things so you can get out more regularly, which will give you more confidence. So there we go. So knowing your equipment, knowing how to use it, understanding how it works is a number 2 one for more confidence. And then the kites do make a difference. And this is, I don't know how many of you follow the Big Air Kite League. I know that Michaela Pilkington's going to be talking next month, and I'm excited about that. And she's on the Big Air Kite League, which is super. But last year in the men's division, because I didn't really have a women's tour winner, but the guy who won the men's division, he could do amazing loops and twirls and the whole lot. And then in the last competition now, which was run in France, the big tricks that won the competition, the one was a double kite loop. So that's, imagine you jump up and you pull on the one side of the bar and the kite goes around once, and then it goes around again, and then comes up, and in the meantime you're falling down, and then just before you hit the ground you might loop the kite the other way to lift you a little bit so that you can go land. So that's a double kite loop with a heli loop kind of landing. Or the other one that was a very popular trick, which was the big trick of the competition, was an S loop, which is a double kite loop, but it was unwound. So first loop the kite this way, and then you loop it the other way, and then the guy did. And the rider who did this, the guy who did this, he's in the interviews, he says he was just holding his breath. He used a couple of other choice words, but that's pretty much what it came down to. Hoping that the kite will fly fast enough around. Now, he has confidence in his equipment because it's been designed to do that. The guy who won the tour last year, he hasn't even tried those tricks. He's probably looked at it and realized that his equipment isn't suited to do that. So he doesn't even he's not even going to go there. He's not even going to try it until he has the right equipment to do it. And so that's the other thing, is it's knowing your equipment well enough that, one, you have confidence that it's going to do the job, or 2, that you know that it's not going to do the job, so don't even try. And that way you're not going to ruin your confidence using the wrong equipment. And if you know that you want to try that trick, then maybe work up to getting the right equipment. For example, a freestyle kite is probably not the best kite to learn your first jumps on. And a free ride kite, which is a really good kite probably to learn your first jumps on, isn't going to be the right kite to learn your first unhook tricks on. Then you swap the two around. And using the right equipment boosts your confidence, helps you learn quicker. And so, yeah, choose your equipment, know your equipment, know what it's good for, and understand how it works. And then the final final confidence boosting tip I have for you ladies is, doesn't matter where you are, mix it up, try little baby steps. So it's baby steps to your tricks. I know we all want to jump 10 meters, or we all want to ride the big wave, but to get there, do lots of little steps, because I mean, from my I've found over the years that sometimes the tricks that I've been the most afraid of doing, like a rally to blind, for example, it's quite a committing trick. You're unhooked, you're flying like a Superman, and then you rotate yourself and you land going backwards blind. And if you get it wrong, you catch the back of your board and you end up flailing yourself backwards and getting a terrible headache. And it's not a difficult move, but it's an intimidating move. And so what you do is you break it up. So the first thing you learn to do is you learn to do your unhook trick, or which is just literally unhook and hook back in. Unhook, maybe do a surface handle pass or ride toe side and hook back in. Like, get really confident. Doesn't matter what position you're in, you can hook back in. And then, of course, you've got your jumps, which precede all of that. Maybe you want to put a couple of rotations in, just to be very confident about your air awareness. There's a lot of little tricks that you do before you do that big committing trick. You might ride blind hooked in, and you might jump and land blind hooked in. And those are all the things that I did before trying this trick. So I was very aware of it, and it was a very big step. And then one afternoon I went out and I tried it, and I tried it over and over again until I got it right. But I did it in one afternoon, and then the next time I went out, I did it going the other direction. And it was just because of the multiple small components that were added together that trick was possible for me. And that's what you should be doing. So when you're out riding and you're trying something new and it's not working for you, forget about it. Just throw it out the window and go do something else. Something maybe complementary or something different, something to get you out of your head, but it will teach you some skills when you're doing it. So I've been reading recently about learning, and this is slightly on a tangent. There's a study that was done on 8-year-old kids. So these kids were taught, they were learning motor skills, and they were throwing bean bags into a bucket, and they would separate them in 2 groups. And there was the 8-year-old kids that were throwing bean bags into a bucket 3 meters away, and then the other kids, group 2, who were throwing bean bags into buckets 2 and 4 meters away. Now the group 1 kids, who only threw it into the 3-meter distance bucket, they started getting it right quite consistently, a lot quicker than the other kids, than the group 2, which had the 2-meter and 4-meter buckets. So after a month of this practice, the 2 and 4-meter bucket kids, they still missed more regularly than the 3-meter bucket kids. But now there was a competition or a test. And the test was for them to throw into a 3-meter bucket, a bucket 3 meters away. And in the end, the group 2 kids who had practiced near and far throwing got better results than the kids who had only practiced the 3-meter bucket. So even though it was the same distances that they've always practiced, they didn't do as well as the kids who had practiced near and far. And pretty much what it comes down to is that they learned to assess the distance the bucket's away and the amount of pressure to throw the beanbag with. Now, the same thing comes with your kite tricks. If you just try a back roll in the exact same spot on your in your location where you ride, you're going to be able to do that back roll in that location probably very well. But change locations or change wind strength or change your kite, and you might not get it right. So my suggestion is try that back roll in more than one location, try it in the other direction, try maybe a front roll as well. And at the end of the day or the end of your season, that back roll is going to be a lot easier in that one spot than if you only tried it in that one spot because you mixed it up. So yeah, baby steps and as many variety of things as you can do as possible. So that, and learning a little thing is fun and boosts your confidence. So you may not be jumping huge, or maybe the conditions haven't been suited for you to learn that trick you want to learn. But why not learn to ride toe side? Why not learn to hop to blind? Why not learn to unhook and hook back in? Why not learn to ride a directional board or try a foil board for the first time or underloop your kite? There's so many variety of things that you can try. And then at the end of the day, you might put them all together to do this amazing trick. But you first got to have the little building blocks. So your baby steps. Okay. So I think I will end that here. Like there's, so pretty much the summary is, first one is assess, a risk assessment. So, or assessment of your location or the conditions, and also what you want to do and do the two gel together. So that's quite important. The next one is choose the right equipment and understand your equipment. And then the third one is practice your baby steps, because it's at the end of the day, it's the journey and the learning along the way that keeps us excited and keen to go kite again. So those are my 3 confidence building tips. I hope you enjoyed that.
Thank you, Sue. Let's all give her either some video reaction applause or some physical clapping. Woo woo! Way to go, Sue. Thank you for sharing your 3 tips to be a more confident kiter. I know that no matter where we are in our kiting journey, we all need to remember those 3 things. And they seem like common sense, but they're not always common practice. And, I'm an IKO instructor, and I sit here and I think about some of the things you're saying. Gear matters. Knowing your gear, using the right gear for the right thing is so important. And then being safe about your gear and testing, the releases. And, how many people go out there every time they kite and just test their release system? Mm-hmm. I mean, we get a little complacent, don't we? I mean, yeah. I
want to know it's going to work when you need it.
You do. And it seems basic, but I'm one of those safety freaks that I'm always testing that stuff. And I try to help other people learn that. So I love that you're promoting that. I love that you're promoting, know the wind and know the wind at your sites. And if you have multiple site choices, really think about where's the wind coming from and where do you need to go to kite successfully that day with your right equipment, right? And with the right kind of kiting. And be flexible. If you can't twin tip, maybe you can foil, maybe you can learn to wing. Those are just all really great reminders. And I think knowing the wind, especially as a newbie, as a beginner kiter, a lot of people ask me, how do I learn about wind theory? And there's a lot of ways. My first question, I'm gonna open it up to the rest of you. But which wind apps do you use, and how do you learn the wind and the direction at various sites? And do you have a favorite way or a favorite app?
So in Cape Town, we've got a whole lot of wind meters that actually, so I've become quite lazy since I've been here, because I can just check what the wind's doing and then go to that beach. But the Windy app, which is started off as Windy CZ, I think it was.
Is it this red one, right?
That one there.
Yeah, Windy. Yep.
Windy. So that one is really good because it shows you the weather system. So where it's coming from, where it's going to, and how it might change. Nice. So your wind finder gives you the wind strength and the wind direction, but it doesn't actually give you the reason why it's that wind strength or that wind direction.
Good point.
With Windy, you can see the reason why it's happening, which is also a warning, possibly to the quality of the wind. Yes, sure, wind finder says it's going to be gusting from this to this, but for your specific location, if you watch the Windy app and then you go to the beach, you can actually put the two together and go, actually, this beach isn't going to work today, going to that one will be better. But yeah, since I've been in Cape Town, I've become quite lazy, and I just go to the wind meters and check what they're doing. So yeah.
Very good. Good tips. Thank you. Other questions or comments? And Kelly just put in the chat window that she likes that Windy has different forecast models too. So that's another thing. And a good book she mentioned, Kelly just mentioned, is Understanding the Sky. It's a book on forecasting. Interesting, because I think the more you understand those conditions, the better choices you make, right?
Yeah. And it's also a lot of people only look at where the wind's coming from, and they don't actually look at where the wind's going to.
Agreed.
So in some spots you look at it and you think, okay, well, it's going to be windy there, but a lot of people don't think about the fact that no, it's when the wind gets to a certain strength, it's going to be lifting off the water and going over your head, over the top of the mountain behind you. And there's going to be no wind on the beach. There might be wind 150 meters out, but there's going to be nothing on the beach where you're standing. So it's also important to get to know that.
Agreed. Yeah, Michaela just mentioned that local knowledge is also going to help you. Try to reach out to people who know that spot, right? Especially if you're new to the area. So just talking to people on the Kite Beach can add a lot of knowledge quickly.
Yeah, and again, if you know the risks of a location, and because the locals have told you there's a rock over there or there's a cement block over there, you can be a lot more confident to try your tricks in that location. But yeah, so definitely get to know and do the proper assessment of a spot before you go out. And currents and tides are a big one. You can't really see them sometimes, but they can cause, I mean, that's one of my, a couple of times I've done self-rescues in the situations where I've been caught in currents, and I've just had to relax and go with it and then swim across the current to a safe exit location. But again, I'd assessed the location first, so I knew that was a good exit position.
Knowledge is power, as they say. Yes.
The power to bliss, but it's not,
but it's not
you're going to
safe.
get in trouble. It's not going to be safe. You're going to get yourself in trouble.
No doubt.
Or injured.
Right. So other questions or comments from our wonderful women kiters around the globe? Yeah, go ahead, Callie.
Yeah, my internet might be not super stable here, so sorry if I cut out. This is just more of a general work-life question. How do you handle, I guess, patronizing people? I know Airush is like super supportive of women and stuff, but just, I guess in a general sense, I seem to be like encountering a lot of these interactions lately on the beach and in the workplace. And how do you handle those types of situations?
So I think I've been very fortunate in a sense that I don't, when I studied conservation, and there were 4 women in our class of 30, and there were in total 12 women in a college of 300 men. And so my life's been the underdog, the lady underdog. So coming into kiteboarding in the early days, there weren't many men, there weren't many women around, so I'd get excited. Laurel was kiting up in Nelson, and I was in Christchurch briefly right at the beginning of my career. And you knew pretty much all the ladies around, and then the men would come along, and they'd my husband likes to tell the story of there was a New Zealand nationals competition, and it was in Raglan in New Zealand, and I ended up entering the men's as well as the women's because I wanted to compete internationally, so I wanted some good quality competition. And I entered the men's, and the male conversation was, "Oh, this is going to be so easy. There's a woman in my heat." And then after they rode it with me, at the time it was the conversation that was overheard was, "I thought I was going to win it, and then she went out and she did this, and then she did that, and then I knew it was all over," which were the 2 tricks. And you can show it with your actions. You're going to always have the guys who go, "I'm a man, I can do it better than you," and you just got to go, "Thank you for your advice. Thank you for your I've done my research, or I've done the practice." And that's it. The other one situation I had was here in South Africa. I had this was in the early 2000s. I'd borrowed a kite because I didn't have a kite small enough, and the kite that I had borrowed was quite a couple of seasons old, and I pumped it, and I was ready to launch it on the beach, and I went and asked a guy to launch me, and he said to me, "Oh, I don't think you should be going out." I said, "That's why I asked you to launch me, because if it's too windy for me, I'll just get dragged, and you can grab the back of my harness, and I can pull the quick release on the kite." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And he launched me. He launched, I got dragged past him, I grabbed my board, I put it on my feet, and I went out and I kited. And I saw him later in the car park, and he said to me, "Oh, so you can kite?" And I said to him, "Well, if you bothered asking me, you'd know that I can kite." And sometimes the best thing to do with the people who are being a little bit, "You're a girl," kind of thing, is to go, "Yeah, I am a girl, and I'm going to do it better than what you can." And yeah, it's, Airush is very supportive of women. There's 3 of us ladies working in just this office, so it's pretty good.
I love that. I love that. Like a Girl. If you haven't seen that video, it's a short commercial on YouTube for, I think it's put together by the company Always, but it's an amazing video called Like a Girl. It's only 3 minutes long. It's amazing. Thank you for that advice, Sue. And I think what you're really saying is be gracious. And, a lion doesn't have to prove they're a lion by roaring. They don't have to tell you that they're a lion. They just go and act like a lion, right? And that's what we do as women kiters. So thank you for that reminder. Are there questions or comments? We have a few minutes left before we wrap up. Any other thoughts or questions for Sue today?
Is that a hand up, Tam?
Tam, go ahead.
Yeah, it is. Before Monique asks her question, I just wanted to say thanks to Sue, because she's one of those people who doesn't just talk about stuff, she gets it done. So actually the reason Monique and I are sitting here is because Sue organized the Women's Weekend at the beginning of season, and we met up on the beach. And I was the newbie that Sue kind of got into the whole thing and babysat a bit and looked after. So thank you for walking the talk and really working your butt off to get women together, often kicking and screaming when they're not really interested in doing that. You've added a lot of value to a lot of people here.
Thank you.
And Monique has a question.
Yeah, so us women deal with things a lot more differently to guys. So I want to know how you overcome your own personal emotion when you're going into situations that are intimidating, because yes, we all have that incident where the guys are like, oh, check this chick, she shouldn't be going out in these conditions. And as much as we can even go out in the conditions, often that sits on us. And well, for me, sits on me. And I often, even though I'm a capable kiter, I still feel the weight of the comments or the eyes. And I wanted to know how you overcome that emotionally to be able to have the courage to do what you do.
Well, the 3 steps. It's I assess the situation. I make sure my equipment's suitable, and I know my equipment's suitable because there might be someone else using something similar, and they're of a similar weight and a similar skill level to me. So therefore, there's no reason that I shouldn't be going out as well. So, and I say someone, I mean, it's likely a bloke. So when you get to the beach and there are other kiters out, that's a easy-ish way of doing it. And just go, I weigh this much, I've been kiting for this long, I've been out in these conditions, and that person over there is out doing just fine. It means that I'll be just fine. Just because this other person over here doesn't think it's right, that's something they're carrying, it's not me. So do your own assessment. And it's, yeah, and if it does weigh on you a little bit, if you're lucky enough that there's someone else around, to just say to them, hey, what do you think? Because having that confidence boost from someone else going, yeah, you'll be fine, sometimes does help to at least stop that little niggly mind. And then make sure you've got your exit strategy if it is. So if you launch the kite and oh, it's way more than you expected, let go of the bar and pull the quick release if you have to. And always make sure that if it does pull you, you're going to get pulled towards the soft stuff and not anything hard. I mean, that's, yeah, do the assessment. And yeah. Practice.
Thank you, Sue. Those are such great tips and reminders for us, so that we don't get complacent and that we do remember how important safety is, and for ourselves and other people around us. So I want to just say thank you, everybody. If you could give her a round of applause. I'm sorry we've run out of time.
Thank you, everyone.
So enjoyed it. And just to share with you, ladies, before you leave, I wanted to remind you that we have a couple of other great speakers like Sue coming up. June 1st is Kite Pro Michaela Pinkleton, who's on that call today. July 6th is open. If you know of any great woman kiter that you'd like to recommend, please let us know. And then August 3rd, we also have, whoops, just messed up my slide. We have Crystal from iKitesurf Magazine, who will be with us as well. And she's here today too, right? Did I see her? I think I did. Yep, Crystal Dennis. And future dates open. We have September 7th, October, November, and December. If you'd like us to have any other great speakers like the ones we have now, please let us know. Also, Workday Wednesdays is today, and you'll see on our Facebook group if you want to promote any of your own businesses, kite camps, instruction, anything related to kiting, we hope you will put it on there on our Facebook group. This is our board here today. Most of us are here. Consider volunteering your time. Please reach out if you'd like to help us out, only 3 or 4 hours a month. And I want to just say thank you. It was lovely to see all of you from around the world. We had Germany, Brussels, South Africa, UK, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Dominican, and several states in the US. I want to say thank you and have a wonderful week. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.